Hello, everyone. Welcome to Girls in Numbers' first webinar. So I'm going to start by introducing you guys to Girls in Numbers. Girls in Numbers is essentially a nonprofit founded by students just like you guys. We went through Addmaths and we've learned about it as well. Basically, what we're planning to do is to expose you guys with the resources needed to excel in your Addmaths, especially SPM students. So this is one of our first free webinars where we bring in speakers from PNB, Bank Negara, and more for them to talk to you about the tips that they had learned about during their journey to help them excel in Addmaths. So my name is Charnia. I'm one of the co-founders of JIN, and Rishika is also another co-founder. I would like to invite her to say a few words.
Hi everyone, my name is Rishika and I'm also one of the co-founders of Girls in Numbers. And thank you to all of you guys for joining in today. We can't wait to share so much of essential insights for you to get A+ in your Addmaths. All right, first we will be introducing our amazing speaker lineup. First off, we have Trinity. She is a Bank Negara Malaysia scholar. And a fun fact about Trinity is that her hobby is drawing and she also enjoys, her hobby is drawing. So let's welcome Trinity.
Hi everyone. My name is Trinity, as Rishi mentioned just now. You guys can also call me Trin. My course is economics, and as mentioned before, I'm a Bank Negara scholar. I'm from SMK Sri Hartamas, and for SPM, I got A+ in Addmaths. I personally found Addmaths a very challenging subject, but after really practicing it, I think that it also became kind of fun in a way. Of course, the pressure for Addmaths exams never truly went away, although you practice a lot. But overall, I'd say despite all the stress, it's enjoyable for me.
All right, thank you so much, Trinity. We're so excited to have you here today. And secondly, we have Yadavi. She is a JPA scholar currently pursuing medicine. And a fun fact about Yadavi is that she loves watching Studio Ghibli movies. Let us welcome Yadavi.
Hello everyone. My name is Yadavi Muridin, as mentioned. So I'm a JPA scholar and I'm currently doing my foundation in biological and biomedical sciences in Newcastle University Medicine, Malaysia. So for SPM, I managed to get an A+ for Addmaths, and my experience learning Addmaths during the SPM period, initially it was a little challenging, like in the beginning of Form 4, but with more practice and understanding of the concept, because Addmaths is very abstract, right? So the more understanding that I had, it became easier. And in fact, towards the end, it was more like a problem-solving game for me. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Yadavi. We'll be moving on to our third speaker, which is Amani. She is a PNB scholar, and a fun fact about Amani is that she has taken exams in very weird places. Let us welcome Amani.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Amani, and as introduced before, I am a PNB scholar, currently pursuing my A-levels at College JSNUM and intending to pursue electrical and electronics engineering. So essentially, what I want to clarify a bit about weird places. So when I was in high school, I was actually quite active with competitions. As such, I had the tendency to be put in situations where I had to take my exams in airplanes, for instance. So that was something that I had to go through, which was essentially quite fun. And because of that, I had to miss a few classes, especially for Addmaths. So I got straight A's for my SPM. My Addmaths was A solids. Unfortunately, I was predicted to get A+, but I learned a lot from that. And I actually found Addmaths to be quite fun at the end of the day, because essentially it's a problem-solving type of subject, and I really do love to solve problems. So yeah, all right.
All right, thank you, Amani. And next off, we have Liana, and she is also a Shell scholar. A fun fact about Liana is that she is a chocolate and matcha hater, although I may not particularly agree with that. So let us welcome Liana.
Hi everyone, my name is Liana. I am a A-level student at College Yayasan UEM and my course right now is data science. I got A+ for my Addmaths when I was in high school. My high school was SMK Damansara Utama. And actually, Addmaths was actually one of my, if not my favorite subject, contrary to some what some people might think. But I understand the struggle of Addmaths, and I think I got through it because of a lot of practice. So yeah, I look forward to sharing all these tips with you guys today.
Thank you, Liana. Looking forward to all your tips. And last off, we have Lisan, and she is also a famous YouTuber. Please check out her YouTube channel. A fun fact about Lisan is that she is a content creator, and she also cuts her hair herself. And she received the JPA scholarship offer, but she rejected them because she wants to pursue actuarial science. Let us welcome Lisan.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Rishika, for having me today. So my name is Dasan, and I am a YouTuber, and most of you guys, I believe you know me from YouTube. So the name of my YouTube channel is The Sun YouTube channel. Okay, so currently I'm studying my first year degree in actuarial science in Sunway University in KL. So for my SPM, I got an A+ for my Addmaths, and back in my high school year, I once scored 100 marks for my Addmaths. Not only Addmaths, but Sejarah Kertas Dua, which is your structural and the essay question. Yes, I did score 4 marks for that for multiple times. And also my English writing and my, what else? Basic computer science, and even my PJ, Pendidikan Jasmani. Yeah. So yeah, that's all the subjects that I got full marks. And I would say that I can get full marks is not because of how smart I am. I won't say that because I am not a people that was born to be smart. No. Just that I know how to manipulate with, I know how to play around with the rules, with the game of the rules. Okay. Sorry, with the rules of the games. All right, so later I will share you more about the rules and how we can play around with later. All right, so thanks for having me today. I'm Dasan.
Thank you so much, Dasan. All right, we will move on to our first question. So Chara will be starting off.
All right, so a question to all speakers. Firstly, we're going to start with something light and introductory in a way. So how did you find SPM Addmaths at first, and how did you find it afterwards throughout your high school life? This question is open to the floor, by the way, so maybe Amani could try it first.
All right, sure. So, like I've stated before, during the first 3 weeks of introductory math lessons in Form 4, I was not really present in classes because I had to go to several competitions. I had competitions in and out. So like for every single month, I had to go outside of my boarding school. So essentially what that means is that I've missed a lot of like content that my teacher was teaching. So I had to do a lot of catching up in that sense, right? So in that particular moment in time, I thought like Addmaths was something that was like a Herculean task that I had to overcome because essentially everybody was already like on top of their studies. They already know how to do like everything basically, but I had to start from zero. So what I did essentially at the end of the day was that I tried to find strategies for me to adapt to essentially fast pacing my studies. In this regard, I found that learning through the methods of, I would say, a menu would be the best way to pursue that. So if you're not familiar with that particular concept, it's essentially like you're trying to do a menu. You write down step by step of how you're actually going to like solve a particular problem. And what I did back then was that I kept like a notebook for that particular menu, sets of menus. And because of that, I was actually able to catch up with my peers and actually became an official mathematics Addmaths tutor. So that was something that I was actually quite keen on. And I really like to help others to understand mathematical concepts. And in that sense, I also learned a lot by teaching people. So one of my proudest moments was not only getting myself from I would say almost failing to an A solid, but also helping others as well from, getting G to actually getting A minus in that sense, because I was also a peer tutor at that moment in time. So I would say Addmaths was challenging at first, but after understanding like what is important in particular towards its concept and also how to approach it, I think that was like something that I would say would be good to pass on to others as well. All right.
That's amazing, Amani. It's nice to see how you slowly grew and like progressed through your Addmaths journey. All right, next question, like moving on to the next speaker, we're gonna go with the Sun.
All right. So for me, right, I have a very similar situation as Amani, honestly, because when I was in my high school year, I'm not only a student, but I am an athlete in my state. I'm from Johor, and also I play music. I play piano and all that. So like within 2 months, I can have up to 8 competitions. That means averagely, I will have 1 competition in 1 week, every single week. So, and also during that 2 months, I am sitting for my Form 5 mid-year exam, as well as I have 3 performances to be ready. So, and that was really a harsh time when I had to get through all of this, especially in math and Addmaths, because math and Addmaths is not something that you can do at the very last minute. No, you need like long time practices, all that. So at that time, I try my very best to find what are the strategies, the rules, how can I play around with math so that I can understand it like 100% until the point where I can play around with it with like a very different way. Because sometimes when I was in my school, right, the teacher, they would teach the concept. But if you know more than the concept, it will be better for you to play around with it, especially during your exam. And that's how I eventually get full marks in my Addmaths. So again, I have a harsh time that time, and that's why for now in my YouTube, I always share like the ultimate tips for you to score the maximum marks in a minimum time, which is the thing that we always say, work smart. So yeah, that's how I look for MS.
That's amazing, the Sun. And competitions every week. Like, wow, how did you manage your time? That's amazing. All right, moving on to Liana.
Yeah, so I think what has been said by Amani and the Sun are quite valid. Because I do think that Addmaths has a lot to do with consistency and the ability for you to keep up with your work every week. And because for me personally, I struggled more with the content heavy subjects like sejarah, what else? Pendidikan Islam. So what I tried to do was to be a bit more consistent with my Addmath practice so that I can kind of cram the content heavy subjects before the test so that I can have it more fresh in my memory. But what I did realize about Addmath is that it is a lot about practice because it is the same concept that is being applied in different ways. Because I think that it's different than math because like Addmath, I feel like if you get the concept, the question will just twist the storyline around, but the variables are the same. You know, the formula that you have to use is the same. You just have to like figure out what are the variables that are in the question that you need to plug into the formula or something. So bottom line is that after I figured that out, I just needed to practice, like practice lots and lots. And what I did do was to make a study schedule because like I think similar to Amani and the Sun, I mean, SPM was busy and I was also involved in lots of competitions. So I did make a study schedule and I actually have it right now. And I think I can share my screen. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay, so like I created this for a different workshop. It was for an A-level workshop, but it is very applicable to SPM, where like you can create your own schedule with like your task, like the status of each like sub assignment that you have within each topic. So let's say your topic 1 is quadratics. So what do you need to do under each topic, and like what's the workflow, how's the work going, and the due date. Okay, this is how I like my schedule, but it's something that you could consider doing to make sure that you're more on track with your work. And like I even made like an exam countdown. Like you can like input your dates and like it will show. So let's say your exam is like let's say your exam is tomorrow, right? So you have like 1 more day left, and you can create and you can put in like maths test, so that it kind of creates anxiety. Because for me personally, study schedules that create anxiety are like the better ones. Yeah, so like this is something you could consider and something that can keep you on track. Yeah, that's all from me.
Wow, I guess we can say that one thing that's in common is that we should always have a study schedule and a timetable. And Liana's example was like a really clear indicator that time management is super important at this stage of your life, of course. All right, moving on to Yadavi.
Okay, I agree with the previous 3 speakers. I mean, initially Addmaths is and was really challenging, right? But then the main thing about Addmaths is that the concept is the main thing. So like once you understand the concept and you kind of understand all the formula involved, solving the questions will be easy, because to solve questions for Addmaths, right, all you need is practice, because the formula is the same, just like Liana mentioned earlier. So once you get an understanding about the formula, you just need to know where to apply it. So the more questions you do, you'll be able to sense a pattern. So you'll be able to detect like, oh, this question, I feel like this is related to this topic. So you'll be able to like interconnect the formula and solve the questions. So the main thing about Addmaths is, I would say, the formula. Like one way that I used to study Addmaths was that I used to write down the formula involved. Like for example, for example, the trigonometric functions chapter, right? There are so many formula involved. So what I used to do is that I used to write down all the formula and I used to stick it on like a pin board on my study table. And then so every time I look at it, I'll be reminded of that formula. And also like whenever I'm solving questions, I used to just be able to look at the wall and do the questions, because the formula was accessible. So the more questions you do, it will become more familiar. So you will not need to look at the formula anymore. So it will become something like muscle memory, you know. So you just have to like slot in the values. Like you don't have to sit and memorize the formula the day before the exam. Like when I used to talk to my friends, like some of them used to actually sit down and memorize maths formula. That's not how it works. It should be part of yourself. It should be like muscle memory. So it should come naturally. Okay. So I think for Addmaths, right, the questions is very it's very twisted sometimes. So like the concept is simple, but then the questions are very different. So I think I would suggest that doing more questions is definitely the best option. And another thing was that in secondary school, my Addmaths teacher used to always say that you need to do Addmaths every single day for it to be effective. And that is something that I really agree, because like before trials, right, so I chose to listen to her at the end of Form 5 only. So towards trials, like 3 months before that, I told myself, this time I'm going to do Addmaths every single day and let's see what happens. So I did Addmaths every single day, and towards the end, I found the paper like really easy. Like when I looked at the question, I was like, oh, I know this pattern. I feel like I can solve it. And like that, so I realized that it was really effective. So I think another tip that I would say is that do Addmaths every day. If you can't do like a whole set of questions, like for example, you don't have to sit down and finish a paper 1 set in one go. You can just do like maybe 3 questions per day. Because every day, if you revise one single topic, it's enough already. Okay? Yeah, that's all.
Perfect. It's super clear that consistency is key, and at least like 1 or 2 questions every day is just enough to go a long way, right? Okay, so now for our last speaker, Trinity, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. So I think a lot has been said already. Personally, in Form 4, when you get into class and you start learning Addmaths, I wouldn't say it's too overwhelming because, you know, you're just starting out. It's just like chapter 1, chapter 2, so it's okay. The real struggle comes when you actually sit for the Addmaths exam because you realize that, whoa, these questions I've been doing in class compared to the actual exam questions, the difficulty, the gap is really, really wide. So one thing that I think is really important when you're studying Addmaths and you're just learning it is make sure that you do a lot of actual exam questions, not the questions in the textbook. Because the questions in the textbook are just there to kind of help you get a grasp of the basics. Of course, first, make sure you understand the basics. And then after that, do exam questions. And like Yatavi said just now, practice makes perfect. It really does for Addmaths. It will become muscle memory when you do a lot of questions. You'll realize, oh, I've seen this type of question before. I know how to answer it. And of course, there will be questions where you have to think more. So it's good to spend a lot of time doing practice before that, because one important thing for the Addmaths exam is time. I feel that if you spend too long on every single question, you're not going to be able to finish the paper. So, and that's another thing. Make sure you always time yourself before the exam. Do a few papers. Make sure you can finish them in time. Yeah, that's basically it from me.
All right. Thank you so much to all our wonderful speakers. We really love all of the tips that you mentioned. And just a fun fact, Yadavi and I, we were in the same class. We were actually table mates. And shout out to Pan Udaya because she's the reason that we love Addmaths. We love you, Pan Udaya. All right, moving on to the next section, which is on study resources. So what were your go-to study resources? Did you guys rely on your textbooks, your reference books, or were there any online platforms or YouTube channels that you guys used? And did you guys rely more on tuition or the classes that you attended in school itself? The question is open to the floor, so anyone can answer this.
All right, then I think I can go first. So for the resources, the first thing is past paper. When you can get the past paper in a Telegram channel. The name is Soalan Percobaan SPM. And then you can just search the name in your Telegram and it will pop up. And so that's the source that you can get your past year paper. And for the online platform that you can find useful resources, I would like to suggest myself. You can go to the Sun YouTube channel and let me share a screen for you. Hold on. All right. So as just now, as what Diana said, she did a timetable for herself, which I found is like very useful. And we have a same point because for when it comes to timetable, I preferred instead of stating a timetable, like instead of stating, for example, from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., you must do this. From 8 to 9, you must do it. Instead of doing that, I would just put a deadline here, like what time is the deadline. And then that will be a lot more flexible for you because as long as you complete the task before the deadline, that's good enough. No matter what I do in between, as long as I get what I want at the end, then that's good enough. That's why I will always suggest my audience to set a timeline, set a deadline instead of restricting yourself like from 7 to 8, you must do what? From 8 to 9, you must do what? And then when you set up your to-do list, when you set up your task, remember to set it as specific as you can. For example, for example, this one, if you want to do the past paper, don't just put like do past paper. That is too general. Make it to be more specific. You can say like, for example, today you have to complete 3 sets of past paper, or if that's too much for you, then you can just complete 3 questions of past year which year and which negeri. Okay, so just make it as specific as you could. Okay, so this is the first thing. And then I also send out a free study planner like this, although it's like a very simple one, but I hope that it could help you more or less. So for this study planner, you can get it for free. You can get it for free from these 2 videos in my YouTube channel. So how you can find these 2 videos is you go to my YouTube channel, and then you go to the playlist, you found this playlist, and then you will find that 2 video. And under that 2 video, there will be a link for you to get the PDF of that study planner. Yeah. So that's why I suggest my YouTube channel as the resource for you to do better in your math. And that's how I manage my time. And yeah, that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much, Dasan, and definitely check out her YouTube channel, guys. It will definitely help you a lot. Continuing from there, I guess about tuition classes, what are your opinions about that? Do you think it's more helpful to go to tuitions, or is practicing past year papers much more effective? It's again open to the floor, so any one of you guys can take up the question.
Well, for this, right, I would say it is different for everyone. So my suggestion is, why not you try both if you are allowed, okay? If you're allowed, you can try to go for one tuition class and see whether it is suitable for you. See whether it improves your understanding in a certain topic that you initially weak at. Just give it a try at first. And then if you go for tuition, the thing that I want you to remind is that if you find that that tuition teacher didn't actually help you to understand more, then you have to straight away quit and then go for the next teacher. So when I said you have to try, means you can try with different teacher. You can try to enroll in different tuition center if you wish, because just some of the students, I found that they will feel shy when they want to quit a tuition class. But I just want to tell you that don't have to be shy. You have to prioritize yourself, because you are the one who are going to sit for the exam and score the marks. And also you are the one who pay for the tuition class. So you pay for what you want. If you didn't get what you want, then you just stop paying and go for the next one, right? So prioritize yourself in this case. And so my suggestion is you can try tuition lesson and also self-study at the same time, which I mean self-study is a compulsory one, no matter you join tuition class or not. So you just do both and see if the tuition class didn't really help you more, then yeah, you got your answer already. You can just do your self-study. But if you found that the tuition class helped you, then you can proceed with the tuition class. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Dasan. Maybe anyone else would like to take up the question? Amani, what are your views on this?
All right. So for me, I didn't have like the accessibility towards tuition centers in the first place, because I was based in a boarding school. So my house was in Sepang, Selangor, and I was in boarding school that is in Johor. So basically what I had to rely on 100% was on reference books. So in this instance, I think that if you're in a similar situation to me, you have to make sure that your reference books that you pick are similar to what you would expect the question papers that you're going to answer are going to be based on, meaning to say that it's going to be something that can aid you in order for you to understand. And if you're not, 100% reliant on, I would say, reference books, then make sure that you actually ask your teachers, questions that are poignant and relevant to whatever it is that is in relation to Addmaths. So for me, because I wasn't really able to go to the internet, because I was not given access to phones or tablets or computers as well. So that is essentially what I had to rely on, even with the fact that I had to go to, competitions and all. So basically, summarizing it all, make sure that your reference books are really relevant. And because of this particular point, I would say you need to make sure that you pick the best one. And I would say I would recommend the Nilam publication Addmaths exercise book. So maybe I could share my screen for a bit if that's not much of a problem. All right. So wait a bit. Yeah. So new tab, share. All right. So hopefully it's visible to all of you. So Nilam publication Addmaths. I'm not really sure if everybody actually has access to this, but like it's very, I would say, considerably cheap. And this is what I relied on in order for me to like fast track my understanding of Addmaths. So I really do suggest you guys to, look into it and just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. So yeah, that's basically it for me. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Amani. We hope you guys have gotten amazing resources for your Addmaths, and we will move on to the next topic of discussion, which is on study strategies. So what were some common mistakes that you made during your SPM period, and what did you learn from them? Again, the question is open to anyone, so you can just speak up.
Yeah, I'll take up the question. I actually have the common mistakes. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Give me a minute. Okay. Okay, so these are some of the common mistakes that I noted. Like, the first thing is careless mistakes. So in the beginning of Form 4, I used to do a lot of careless mistakes. Like, I'm not even going to lie. And I think the main reason for that is because like the transition from lower secondary to upper secondary was a bit hard. From 4 major subjects to 10 major subjects. I bet many of you will be facing the same problems if y'all are in Form 4. So in the beginning of Form 4, I was dealing with the stress. So I used to stay up, like I used to burn the midnight oil to like get things done, because there were a lot to catch up and like a lot of homework, a lot of learning. And in the beginning of Form 4, also a lot of extracurricular activities. So I think you need to get enough sleep, because during sleeping is the only time like your body gets to detoxify the brain. So if that toxic builds up, it will cause your brain to do a lot of careless mistakes. So make sure you get enough sleep, and this is to avoid careless mistakes. Another thing that I observed was like many students, they don't have a sufficient exposure to KBAT questions. So Addmaths, as we mentioned earlier, the concept is simple, but the questions will be twisted in a way that it can be really confusing. So you need to get the exposure to these kinds of questions. You need to be able to improve your thinking skills so that they can think in a way, like in a different way. You have to look at a question from different perspective, because like during the exam, one thing is that you will not have enough time to sit and really ponder on that question. So you will have to train your brain to think fast and also think accurately in order to solve the question, right? Another thing is surface level understanding of the concept. So the concept is simple, but for example, integration, right? You need to understand how you derive the formula to find the volume, for example. So in the question, like during exam, they might twist it in a way, like they might ask you to derive the formula from a situation given in the question. So if that's the case and you have memorized how to derive it, like you have memorized it using a certain situation given in the formula module, right? So if you memorized it that way and in the exam they give you a different situation to derive the formula from, and if you have like a surface level understanding, you will not be able to derive it from the situation given in the question. Okay, so I think to overcome that, you have to understand the concepts and you have to be able to think from different perspectives so that you'll be able to solve the questions given during the exam from different perspectives as well. So memorization versus understanding, right? So Addmaths is all about understanding, I would say. Even if the formula derivations you have to memorize because they might ask you to derive the formula. So I would say don't memorize how to derive the formula. Try to understand how they have derived the formula. Don't memorize it like step by step, because during the exam they might ask you to derive it from a different type of way. So you must be able to be flexible when deriving the formula. Okay, that's all.
All right, thank you so much, Yadavi. So moving on from that, I guess it's also very important to have the right approach during the exam itself, right? So what did you guys do whenever you got stuck on a hard question or a concept? Because I remember during SPM we had to encounter those KBUT questions that were quite extreme. So how did you guys deal with those questions? Maybe Liana can take up this.
Okay, so like for hard questions, I'm pretty sure our whole batch can relate to trials, where trials was like a shock to us because of how hard, or at least like for me in Selangor, our Selangor paper for trials were really hard. And it was like a shock to everyone because none of us have encountered trial questions or any questions that were that hard. And the marks are like really bad for I think every single school. So first thing is just breathe, because the questions can be very long, and what I would advise you guys to do is to make sure you're consistent with tackling these really hard questions. And I agree with what Trin said, like don't in the textbook, because those are questions meant for you to understand like each part of the topic. Attempt questions that are really kebat. So I have a book that I used to use. I can share my screen. But this book was really helpful because it was this one. Yeah, so this book contained all of the really hard questions that were kibat, that were spot questions, and they worked it out. Like there were work solutions for all the questions. What I would do is that I would cover the solutions and I would do it myself, or just read them thorough if I'm like struggling, if I'm cramming for an exam. And these questions are meant to be really hard. So if you guys have mastered the content, basic content, you guys can just go ahead and do the questions in this book. I would recommend it at least. Yeah, so and during the exam itself, I would say just breathe, make sure you have good time management. If you can't solve the question, move on, because like you might spend so much time on a question and then panic for the next few questions because you spent too much time on the previous question. So just move on and try to make sure that each question has an allocated time. And if you don't manage to solve the question, it's fine. Other people probably did not manage to solve it too. So just don't calm down and practice doing more of those questions and you'll get used to it.
Thank you, Liana, for the tips. To add on to that question, what do you think are the mindsets that students can have when they are sitting for an Addmaths exam? Like, how do they expect to overcome the fear of doing Addmaths, and what different ways can they approach understanding the subject as a whole? So maybe Trin, you can take this one.
Yep. So, of course, as we've all mentioned before, Addmaths is a very challenging subject. It is not easy at all. And there's a big gap between maths from Form 1 to Form 3, and then Addmaths in Form 4 and Form 5. I think when you want to overcome your fear of Addmaths, the most important thing is to remember that when you make a mistake, it's more of a learning opportunity. Like, don't beat yourself down if you can't answer a question, or if you just can't think of the solution at all. Because I'm sure all of us have gone through this. There have always been questions where you sit and you stare at them for 30 minutes and you still can't answer. And that's okay. Don't worry. Just look at the solution, analyze it, and then now you know how to answer it. So don't worry. And besides that, I would say another thing to overcome your fear is to maybe find a study group, because I feel that when you study with your friends, it gives you a lot more motivation to continue on. And also you guys can help each other out. And another thing is that to motivate yourself is you can think of it that learning Addmaths is actually really beneficial for you, because when you move on from Addmaths in Form 4 and Form 5 to maths in college or university, actually it's very similar to Addmaths. For example, I'm taking A levels right now, and the maths is, well, the maths early on is basically just Addmaths. So we kind of have it easier. Yeah, I think that's one thing that will definitely be a motivator. That's it.
Thank you, Trinity. Maybe another speaker can take up the same question.
I think I can take up the question regarding mindset and motivation. All right. So in my particular situation, I've always had this idea inside my head that I wanted to pursue something STEMmy in Oxford. So it was a very high goal that I've set myself up to. So in that instance, I would pivot myself towards a higher standard in conducting my own study sessions. So in that particular sense, I would enforce a sense of needed discipline. It's compulsory for me to abide to that standard, because I want to be something that is part of something that's greater. So in that sense, when I have that particular pivotal, I would say, enforcement, I will always have myself be disciplined, and I wouldn't really stray far from my own schedules that I've already essentially planned earlier on. And I think that because of that particular mindset, I always would think if I'm going to pursue an engineering degree at Oxford, for instance, I shouldn't be intimidated by SPM Addmaths. So that was something that I had going on inside my head over and over again. And whenever I feel down, that was something that brought me up. So I think that is one thing to consider, which is, remembering what you're doing, why you started this journey in the first place, why you're suffering right now. Remember the end goal, and it would always be a lot more better at the end. All right.
It's so nice to see that you persevered through that, and to set such a high goal for yourself is really a motivation for everyone here. All right, another last question, I think, for all the speakers this time. What is one thing you would change if you could go back in time in terms of preparing for your Addmaths exam?
Well, I think I will take up this question first. Okay, so there are two things that I wish that you could know now. The first thing first is how to deal with procrastination. Because back in my high school year, I really procrastinated a lot, which is the part that I regret the most. But it's okay. Now I let you know, and you can do better than me. So how to overcome with the procrastination? I would suggest you to use the 5 seconds rule, which means, for example, because a lot of people the part that I found the most difficult is the starting. For example, they keep on scrolling on their phone for the whole day, and they find it so hard to just put down the phone and go to the table, because the starting is always the most difficult part. I could understand. I know you. I feel you. So this is when the 5 seconds rule comes into the play. So how you do that is, when you're scrolling on your phone, for example, and you suddenly pops up with an idea that, oh my God, next week is my exam. I should do something now, right? When you have this idea, once you have this idea, first thing first, don't give yourself any time to think further. You should start straight away to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then straight stand up, go to the table, and sit down in front of the table. That means the key takeaway here is that you should never give yourself a time to think further. No, when you have an idea like, oh, I should be doing my work now, right? Then straight away, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go up and sort of stand up and go straight to your table. So this is how you apply the 5 seconds rule. And this is the most effective way that I found to overcome the difficulties when you want to start doing a task, the starting. All right. So this is the first thing that I will suggest you to do, the 5 second rules to overcome your procrastination. And the second thing is, when you are going through the past year question, I want you to please make a conclusion for every single question. What does it mean by a conclusion? All right, because let me tell you why you should do this conclusion at first, so that you will realize how important that is. Because I found that a lot of top students that around me, I go and survey them, and I found that there is something that we all encounter a problem, which is we did a lot of past year questions, yes. But then when it comes to exam, there is a question that comes out, and we found that that is very similar to the one that we did in the past year question. But then during exam, suddenly we got no clue how to do it. So what is the problem here? What happens here? The main reason for this is because when you are doing your daily practices, when you are going through the past year question, after you solve the question, you straight away proceed to the next one. You didn't think further. So don't do this. Instead, after you solve every question, please make a conclusion. So how to make a conclusion? First, after you solve the question, look back to the question. And then second, look at your work solution. And then you can start to conclude that, okay, for this type of question, the first step is to what? The second step is to what? And the third step is to what? Okay, so put down this conclusion beside that question. All right, so that next time during exam, when the similar question comes out, then you will know, oh, this one, no, for this type of question, the first thing, according to my conclusion, the first thing I have to do this, the second thing I have to do this, the third thing I have to do this. All right, so I would give you a specific question as an example. Let me share my screen. Every single question. So I take this question from your SPM trial 2024. Okay, so this question your I look back to this question and also my work solution, I come up with this conclusion for this type of question. So next time I will know, okay, if I want to solve dy dx differentiation equation by using first principle, the first thing first is I have to add delta y to y. I have to add delta x to x, which is here, number 1, I label here. See, for y, I add delta y to y. And then I add delta x to x. Okay, this is the first thing I have to do. And the second thing is I have to form delta y over delta x. Here is how I form it. You see, the second step. How I form this is I divide the whole question with sorry, I divide the whole equation with delta x. So then I can deal with the second steps. All right. So after we form delta y over delta x, the third step is we just have to apply this formula here, and then we can solve this question already. We can get the dy dx already. So look at here. This is how I come up with a conclusion. So next time when I want to do the dy dx with first principle, this conclusion will help me to simplify the steps that I'm going to go through. So this is how important a conclusion could be. And also allow me to add one more point, which is how you should check your answer, because this is the thing that I want to highlight the most, because this helped me to score 100 marks in my Addmaths, which I mean a lot of teachers, they didn't emphasize, but I think this is the main reason of me getting good marks in Addmaths, which is you have to check your answer using 3 steps. The first 3 methods, you see which method is applicable for that question. So the first method is you use your calculator. If you can straight away use your calculator to get the answer, to help you check the answer, then just go for it, save your time. Okay, for example, differentiation, integration, matrix, all this, or the binomial distribution, all that you can use your calculator to check your answer. Okay, and the second way that you can check your answer is through the reverse thinking method. For example, here's a very, very simple question, a basic question. So given and put a laser point. So given this fx and fgx equals to this, you have to find gx. So this is my work solution on how I get the final answer of gx. So when you want to do your answer checking, use the reverse thinking method in this question, which is you use this just now from the question, we come up with the answer gx. So now when you want to check your answer, I want you to do it reversely, which is you use your answer to get back the question for me. So you just have to take the gx, substitute gx and fx back into fgx to see whether you can get back 9x plus 8. If you can get back 9x plus 8, that means your answer of gx must be correct, 100% correct. This is how you should use reverse thinking method to check your answer, which I found it very powerful when it comes to your exam. All right, so this is the second method to check your answer, and the third method is pretty easy, which is for a same question, you use different ways to solve it and make sure you get the same answer. So this is how you check your answer during your exam with maximum effectiveness. Right, so that's the final thought of me. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dasan. That marks the very end of our main discussion. So after this, we'll be moving on to the Q&A session. Let me share my screen. All right, just a moment. Okay, so we will be going with the most voted question of the day, which is, how can we cope with the short time for batch 08 SPM to achieve all A's while revising from 4 and covering from 5 topics, and also get a good grade for PAJSK? So this question is open to anyone, so feel free to take up the question.
Okay, so batch 08, I'm not too sure. Okay, does anyone from the speaker panel know how many months you guys have, or if you guys can just like put it in the comments, like, because I'm not too sure how short this time period is. But I mean, I think we also kind of had a short time period to prepare too for our batch, but I don't think it's as bad. Trials in August. Okay, I'm gonna take it that that's bad. Okay, so I think that firstly, make a study schedule that works for you, because given that you have such a short time, try to make sure that you use it the best that you can. But I would say that if you're, let's say in the worst case situation, you're trying to cram for an exam, like let's say it's a month before and you're trying to cram for an Addmaths exam, and that's not a good situation to be in, but that might happen because you have to balance your PAJSK responsibilities can come. You could consider as a last resort looking at past year questions and just doing them. So that in that case, it's not actually studying at math, it's more of like spotting questions, because you're not actually trying to understand the concept through and through, but you're just trying to understand it on surface level, you know, like you are taking the most popular style of questioning in like exam papers and you're trying to familiarize with that, so that in hopes of it coming up for the exam. So that's like in a worst case scenario where you have no more time, then I would suggest spotting to make sure that you can do your best within that short period. But if you have longer months, in this case, everyone here who is already worrying about Addmaths and is attending this talk, make sure to make a study schedule and to like go for tuition or something if you have accessibility towards that. And even if you don't have tuition, I didn't have tuition, self-study it and ask your teacher every single thing that you cannot understand. And personally, how I studied was similar to what the son has already said. Make sure you go through every single mistake that you have made. That's how I studied it. That's how I revised for my Addmaths exam. I just went through every single question I got wrong and looked at the key fact that I had to take note of, so that I don't repeat it for the exam that I'm facing, like, you know, the upcoming exam. And as for the second part of the question, also get a good grade for PAGSK. I'm assuming that relates, you're asking like how to balance your time. I think that just goes back to my study schedule, like what I said about my study schedule. But also, yeah, like do 2 questions a day. Don't overburden yourself with too much. But yeah, if anyone wants to add, please add, because yeah.
I think I also want to add in regards to getting a good grade for PAGSK. So when I was in high school, I had a lot of leadership roles. Team captain for debating, team captain for innovation, and all of these competitions usually range from nationals to international competition level wise. So in that regard, I had to manage my time very properly, because I did not want to have myself becoming a burden for my teammates, for instance, when I don't deliver what I have to deliver as a leader, for instance, right? So in that sense, I think it's always best for you to understand how to prioritize your time. So what I did was I had like a priority way of like ranking my tasks. So essentially, I would rank them based on like urgency, if it's really needed right now, or it can be like put off for a few weeks or a few days later. So in that sense, you know, like what you should be prioritizing. And for Addmaths in particular, I think like always make sure that you're not overburdening yourself, like what Diana has stated, and make sure that you know what you're heading towards to, like what the son has stated in terms of like knowing what your conclusion is. So just making sure that you know what your priorities are always sets you straight for success. So I think like that's what I would like to add. All right.
All right, thank you so much, Liana and Amani, for your amazing tips. And since we're running out of time, I guess the last question that we'll be answering for today is, any tips to acing Addmaths? Again, it's open to anyone, so feel free to take up the question.
Okay, I'll take up the question. So any tips to ace Addmaths? I would say the first thing is be consistent. Consistency is the most important thing in maths and Addmaths. Any practice is really important. Okay, so be consistent, start early, and Addmaths is something that requires a lot of practice, right? So be consistent about it so that you can cram the like theory-based topics towards the end. For example, like Liana mentioned earlier, right? Like history and like maybe biology. You can focus on that towards the end. But to be honest, be consistent about all the subjects so that towards the end of the like study period, you will not be stressed. So don't procrastinate, be consistent. And also one thing that is really important for Addmaths is the answering techniques. So for example, when you're using a formula, make sure you substitute the values to each variable before you solve the question. Because when you substitute the values, it even carries marks for that. So working is really important for Addmaths. and you have to be really good in the answering technique. So for that, make sure you join like the answering techniques workshops that your school organizes, or even like in Telegram channels, they might often advertise answering like Bankil technique menjawab and things like that. So make sure you join these programs so that you will be able to get full marks for the questions, because sometimes even if you may know how to answer the question, if your answering technique is wrong, you will not be awarded the marks. So make sure you are well versed with the answering technique. So that's all. Anyone would like to add, like, feel free to add.
Hi, could I? All right. I think basically everything has been said about, tips on how to score well in Addmaths over this entire session. Actually, as we just found out that you guys have such a short time until SPM, I just want to say something that might relieve your stress a little bit, which is that of course, you are one student who's struggling. Remember that everyone else is also struggling. And for SPM, there is a bell curve. So, even if you may not have had sufficient time to study for Addmaths, everyone else also probably would not have sufficient time. And the grade for Addmaths would, to get an A or an A plus, A minus, it would be lower, the threshold. So just do your best, put in your effort, but at the same time, don't pressure yourself too much, to the point where you can't take it anymore. Because at the end of the day, you'll probably be getting marks that are higher than what you expect. So yeah. And another thing about PAGSK, for me, compared to some of the people on here, I actually did not do a lot of extra things for co-curriculum. If you want to get marks, if you want to try to juggle with your studies a bit more and maybe you struggle with arranging your time, I would suggest maybe trying to just get positions in club or maybe pengawas or whatever student body you have in your school. And I wouldn't say it's the biggest thing that you need to prioritize. Of course, make sure you focus on your studies as well. And, don't put too much pressure on yourself, is what I'm trying to say. That's all for me.
Yeah, and I think like I can like kind of make a small conclusion from like I have a very similar thought as Liana Amani. It's like we have to keep on consistent. But I saw that in the question, some of you mentioned that you tend to study yourself and you want some tips or some kind of motivation to keep on study to keep the consistency. And I do my very best to help you in this case, which is, let me share my screen. We just go very fast. Okay. Which is, if you are studying alone and if you need more motivation, then you could consider joining my 10-hour study with me. This video is available in my YouTube channel, in my playlist, and you can find this playlist, 10-hour study with me. And they will have a timer like this, which means every single hour, we will have 10 minutes break, which means we study for 50 minutes and then we will break for 10 minutes like that. So if you study alone and you need more motivation, let's study together, okay? So you can find this live stream recording. You can play back in my YouTube channel. And the next thing is, for consistency, I started posting one math prior questions every day, I think like for more than 1 month already. So this is an example of what I will post. I will post the question, your trial pass your question, and then with my explanation, with my workings down here. So I post it every single day on my TikTok. This is my TikTok, so feel free to follow it. Although with very little followers now, but I'm just trying my best to help you, especially for those who prefer to study alone. So this is how I help you to keep up your consistency. the channel. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to our amazing speakers. I guess this marks the end of today's session. We'll be moving on to the photography session. So anyone from the audience, if you'd like to be featured on our YouTube channel or our Instagram page, feel free to turn on your camera and we will be taking the picture in just a moment. All right. Okay, so everyone get ready. We'll take it in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, once again, 3, 2, 1. All right, so I guess that is the very end of today's session. Thank you so much for everyone and for taking up the time and tuning in today. I guess a bit about Girls in Numbers and why we started it in the first place. We realized that young girls, many young girls in Malaysia, they have the talent to actually do really well in additional mathematics or any sort of advanced mathematics for that matter, but they don't really have the exposure to these types of resources, and that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them exposure to these amazing resources for them to also ace their Addmaths and get A+ for their SPM as well. We will also be conducting weekly webinars very soon, so tune into our Telegram channel. We will definitely update you guys on future projects. So yeah, I guess that is all for today. Thank you very much, everyone, and especially to our speakers. You guys shared amazing resources and insights, and we're very grateful to each and every one of you guys. So I guess that is all from us. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.